castrate-resistant prostate cancer. Ticker Sandy Romeo November Echo SR and
Good morning, traders. It's 8:01 a.m. Chicago time on Tuesday, the 17th of May, 2022. Thanks for joining me today. A quick sound check, please. This is episode number 2235. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. My sound should be booming. In any case, this morning we have a market that is in a risk-on posture, and what has changed? What has changed at all? This morning had China's third day without infections, and therefore the easing of the lockdown in Shanghai takes place, and this is a major piece. As I talked about yesterday, keep an eye out for news on Shanghai and on China's lockdown. This is likely to propel a push higher, and you can see the numbers in front of you here in real time. The U.S. indices responding really well. I think Hong Kong closed about 70 basis points higher, and so on and so forth. So it's good news there. We also had some really good news on unemployment out of Great Britain. The unemployment rate came in at 3.7%, expected at 3.8%. The claimant count changed by negative 56.9 thousand versus the expected negative 42,000. Much better. The employment changes plus 83,000 versus the forecast 7,000, and average earnings were 7% higher versus 5.4% higher. Also, the Eurozone employment numbers were relatively in line to strong-ish. Eurozone GDP growth rate year on year came in at 5.1%, was expected at 5%. And then this morning we got Fed's Bullard, who's a pretty decent wrench thrower. And then we got retail sales out of the U.S. So there, with retail sales, it's really interesting because it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Because strong retail sales means there's room for prices to go higher, which means inflation, which means more of taper, more of a interest rate hike. This gives room to the Fed to do things that go against the market. So retail sales month on month on April came out at an outstanding 0.9%, expected at 0.6%. Retail sales ex autos came in at 0.6 versus 0.3 forecast. We have Fed's Harker speaking in a bit. And a lot of numbers today. Industrial production also in a bit, in about 10 minutes. NAHB Housing Market Index at 10. Business inventories at 10. ECB's Lagarde at 1. And Fed's Chair Powell at 2 p.m. today. Fed's Mester at 2:30. Fed's Evans at 6:45 in the evening. And the GDP growth number out of Japan at 7:50 in case you're trading at that time. And a housing price index out of China at 9:30, China. So there's a lot there. We also got Walmart this morning. Big hitter, right? Walmart, the big dog. I mean, quarterly revenue for Walmart was estimated at $138.88 billion. That number just shocks me. $138.88 billion in estimated revenue, and guess what? It beat it by 2%, came in at $141.569 billion on Walmart, but it missed on the earnings front. Walmart earned $1.30 per share versus $1.48 expected. That's a miss by more than 12%. And then we also got Home Depot before the market. Home Depot came in shooting, blazing, guns blazing. Earnings per share came in at $4.09 versus $3.67 expected. So they beat by almost the inverse of Walmart. They beat by almost 12%, 11.44%. Revenue was very strong, came in at $38.9 billion versus $36.7 billion, beating by 6%, and so on. We had other retail releases. JD.com, which is a very, very large Chinese, this is the Walmart of China, came in very strong, beat by 66% on the top line, and so on and so forth. So after the market, there's not much going on. Let's turn our attention to the S&P. The S&P's got a multi-distribution profile, which almost looks like a P-shaped profile, which is short covering, but a multi-distribution profile and pretty decent volume. And the inventory is 93% long. I mean, all the market has done since yesterday's close is open and push higher. 93% of the overnight volume is above settlement. The range is 83.25 points, so get yourself ready for a busy day, is what that's saying. Very wide range, well beyond the mode and the first sigma, or what's normal for the S&P at 45.25. This table below tells us, white on white. That's white on white, baby. Can't do that. Let's make it a nice bright blue. So you can see what we're doing is we're comparing these numbers to these numbers. And what these numbers are saying is normal volume is up to 284,000. The mode of volume is 174,000. That's the most common in the last 252 days. This is the overnight statistics. And then the normal range is 45.25 points in the overnight session over the last 252 days. And the most common, 23.5 points of range. And today we have 83.25 points, very large. So the S&P so far, those statistics, pretty important. 93% inventory is long. So coming into today's session, we know that the inventory is long. The S&P, let's look at the intraday. The S&P, you can see here, pretty decent pop higher. Pretty decent pop higher above yesterday's high. And if you recall yesterday, I talked about if the S&P pushes higher and gets that 4042, then we're looking at the 56 next, and then beyond there, we're looking to reverse the one-time framing down, and this was very important. The target becomes 4069, and we got that target this morning because this morning we pushed higher than that. We pushed as high as 4083, 4084 this morning. So really a strong reversal here, starting from way down here. This is just as expected. We discussed this this very likely push since last Thursday, and now we're kind of fulfilling that. We have a pretty decent look at this beautiful kind of confluence here. I can't draw a straight line. Let's see if I can get it a little better. Look at this confluence. Oh, yes. You have the full session mid with these two tops, Globex, and then yesterday's high. Pretty good base. If this thing responds in any way towards the full session, we have the 42-43 area. We have the 40-50, which is a mid-century figure, which is a high-volume area. We have traded the bejesus out of this 40-50 area. Lots of ledges in the area, lots of incomplete auctions in the area, and I expect these to be pretty decent support unless news comes in and changes it, unless Powell says something, unless whatever. There's a lot going on today that can cause us to forcefully revalue, but overall, The bulls have it here temporarily. This is, of course, a rally within a downtrend. But as we open today and push to 69, we end the one-time framing lower on the weekly as we have ended it in the daily last week. And we just continue higher. As expected yesterday, we put in a higher low in the day session. So we've generated one-time framing up on the daily. So one-time framing right now on the daily, it's up. On the monthly is down, or on the weekly, I should say, on the weekly is down, but this was in question right now, and on the monthly, it's down. And so right now, the overall process is it's reversing, and it's taking out some major, some key areas as part of that reversal. Daily time framing can be broken, and it can resume, and it can be broken and resume, and that tells us that we're in balance. But when we take the weekly one-time framing down, which means we breach the prior high, this changes things a little bit. We tend to start to lean on the long side. Okay, so that's where we are. I did want to take a moment and just talk about this yesterday as a reminder. I wanted to say, you know, the primary scenario is a pullback. As you can see here, the primary scenario is a pullback to about 39 to 4,039.95, and I was looking for it to push through the overnight high in yesterday's session and push into the 69. This comes from yesterday. We could not accomplish that yesterday, and we ended up having to kind of trade sideways. Let's take a look at what actually happened yesterday in just a little bit more detail. This is a point and figure chart, a 1 tick by 8 point and figure chart. And what we see in this chart here is a very clear open auction. You know, a market just kind of whipping around, and it ended up pushing to 39.79, breaking the 39.80. So it took out the overnight stat on the downside. Primary scenario is looking for the overnight stat to be taken out on the upside. So that was a bit of a surprise. Yesterday, I didn't put on a single trade, mainly not because there wasn't any structure, because you know what? Nice little structure here. Nice little structure here with a higher low. So, and a swing high. There was a push down. I talked about this in the Convergent Trading Head Trader channel. We pull right back into this cluster, the mid of the session, the VWAP, RTH mid, RTH VWAP. Excuse me, RTH mid, RTH VWAP, and then the open and the opening swing low, all in a cluster, but we end up with a higher low. And the idea is if it breaks through this area, it creates a very strong squeeze, and we got that in the afternoon, but didn't really push very well. It broke the 40.22 IB high, and it stalled out, and it just wanted to spend a lot of time in the middle of the range inside of the IB. So as we move forward, we end up actually following through, but really there wasn't much to go off of except that we had a very nice impulse here. You can see a beautiful 22-point impulse with a higher low pullback to the prior resistance, kind of turned support internally. These aren't very good setups, like very good areas to lean on, and it broke higher. Sounds like we're getting comments or news. It's Fed's Harker. And so this gave us a nice little area to kind of lean and scalp against. And then from there, I got to tell you, you know, broke the prior high. So as I said yesterday, I expect a higher low, higher high, at least a higher low, and I broke the prior high, and then it immediately sold off into the middle. Really mostly balanced yesterday, a normal variation day, and we closed above the 4,000. So those are the characteristics that we had yesterday. Carrying that into today's session, Today's session, as I said, it opened up. It opened up pretty decent volume. It opened up and it really had a driving type of behavior, very bullish this morning. So coming into this morning, the lean is to the long side. We have our point of control in the upper distribution. This almost looks like a P-shaped profile, except it traded a fair amount down here during the Asian session. So it's really a double distribution or a multi-distribution profile with the thin zone at the prior day's high and the last 2 days high. So really this area in here becomes kind of if we push below 40.50, I'm going to be looking to lean against 40.42, but really there's a risk here that it could easily drop through. There wasn't much volume in the overnight session. There wasn't much here to lean against in the current session. Let's reset this real quick. There's an issue with my setup here. So to me, this is the key. The key is pull back into the 40.50, the mid-century figure, which has a lot of volume in it. If that fails, then I'm going to look for another pullback into 40.42, which has the full session mid, the prior high, the overnight high, and a high back at 36. This area, this zone right here, is expected to provide some support, and that'll be the last chance for buyers to kind of pick things up and get back above and threaten the overnight high for the overnight stat, because the overnight low is a ways down. But if it gives up the 40.42, man, that actually sets up a really fantastic trade. Do you know why? Because a lot of people are going to be wrong. It's going to catch people off sides. And then now we're starting to trade into yesterday's range, and we're looking for yesterday's point of control. So if it breaks down through the 40.42 area, remember yesterday's high is 40.4350. If it breaks down through the 40.42 area, then I'm looking for a push higher that is weak, looking to get short against something, identify a zipper or a confluence or whatever it is you lean against for your setups to trigger. And then I'm looking for a push to 40.18, which is the prior value high, with really the intent of getting down to 40.10. 40.15 is the MC point of control in this area. So if we look at this down here, let me turn on the master levels. So you can see the master levels, there's this level down here of 40.15. So if you take everything that's happened since this drop has slowed down and apply a volume profile to the area, you'll find that 40.15 is very prominent, is a very prominent area, and that becomes the target. So the secondary scenario is it tries to hold, pushes through, unable, pulls back, look for the short, look for it to push to 40.15, and then look for the prior settle stat, look for the prior point of control. The prior point of control is 40.10. Prior settle is 404, 4004 or 4005. That becomes a pretty solid trade to the short side. Okay, so I like that trade better than I do the rally trade. So we'll see how that goes. Let's take a look at what's expected for tomorrow. Let me set up this chart real quick here. We've already pushed the one volatility sigma for the session today. And so that's just very important to note. Okay, here it is. In going with the one-time framing on the daily, the fact that we are attacking the weekly one-time framing number. Remember the weekly one-time framing high at 69. We're opening right at it. We have the point of control at 67. We're trading right on top of the point of control, expecting an open auction out of range because we're right on top of the point of control. I'm expecting this to be responsive. Why? Because the inventory is like 94% long, expecting it to try to pull back into this 50, potential 42, and I'm looking for an impulse higher. The impulse likely give us a pullback against a previously identified area, giving us a long for the attack on the overnight high. So now we're looking for a trade from 60, 65, 67, 66, heck, 72, even 483 with about a 4-point stop, gives us about a 2R factor trade to start with. And then the key test that comes next is the century figure at 4,100, expecting it to fiddle around there before it closes below the 4,100, above the 4069, above the prior week's high. Expect it to close above there. That's the primary scenario. This is the obvious trade so far of the key trades of the day. The lesser obvious trade, is that the right color? I don't know. I've got such a palette of colors here. Nope, this is the right color. Open auction out of range, squeezes immediately, pushes the 83.75, comes back in. I want to see it consolidate. The trade to take is if it falls back in, we're looking for it to go back to 50 from about 75 or so. So somewhere in here, we're looking for a short back into the 50 and the 42. So 50, 42, key areas of the map. Now, the important trade here is it gets to 42, breaks down, comes back weak, and starts to fall over, giving us a short around, let's call it 40.39. That trade is very likely to push to 40.10, 40.15, the MC point of control. So if we catch it at 39, let's say, we're looking for 40.15, consolidated 40.15, and then we're looking for the prior settle statistic at 04. Okay, that is the big trade of the day. There's a lot of support underneath there once it gets through the 04. But if it breaks through, great. If it doesn't, it's likely to bounce into the end of the session. Don't forget that our buddy Jerome Powell is going to be talking this afternoon, and that's likely to bring some volatility into the market. But those are the two key ideas. We're opening out of range. There is a third scenario, which is the open test drive. Open test higher, drive lower. Open test lower, drive higher. And those are tougher to trade. Once we get into a trend, it's tougher to trade, and we just have to start becoming a breakout trader. But these are the main plays for today. Okay. Hopefully you picked something up today. Don't forget to hit the like button if you're on YouTube. Subscribe, set notifications for anything that's posted for the next video. Good luck, and I'll catch you tomorrow morning. Take care.